Welcome back, Mona Charen, syndicated columnist, also with the National Review. Welcome back to C-SPAN. We appreciate seeing you again. And Jane Hamsher, who's a blogger at Firedog Lake Blog, the founder of that. Good morning. Thanks for being with us. Let's begin with Sarah Palin, because in all of the papers this morning, she seems to continue to dominate both the front page and the editorial coverage. What do you take? What's your take on this?
You would think she'd won American Idol or something. She's extremely popular. People like her. She gave a tremendous speech at the Republican National Convention, and her story is compelling. It's full of tabloid headlines. She's a new face. People want to know something about her.
Frank Rich this morning in the New York Times has the Palin what's-his-name ticket. He begins, Mona Charen, by saying, with all due deference to lipstick, let's advance the story. A week ago, the question was, is Sarah Palin qualified to be a heartbeat away from the presidency? The question today, says Frank Rich, what kind of president would Sarah Palin be? It's an urgent matter, he writes, because if we've learned anything from the GOP convention and its aftermath, it's that the 2008 edition of John McCain is too weak to serve as America's chief executive. This unmentionable truth, more than race, is now the real elephant in the room of this election.
Well, obviously Frank Rich has God's ear and knows exactly what life has in store for John McCain. I don't think the rest of us do, though. And, yes, he's 72 years old, but seems in most respects to be in very good health, barring skin cancer, which of all cancers is the easiest to cure because you can see it. His mother is a very, very active 96. We don't know what the future holds for McCain. Whether she is qualified to assume the presidency obviously is a relevant question and a perfectly legitimate question to raise. And I think that in the last couple of weeks, we've had people saying the most outlandish things about her, and the truth turns out to be pretty reliable, that she is pretty reliable, very stable, a sensible woman with leadership under her belt. And, if she had to be president the day after Inauguration Day, I think it would be a steep learning curve for a little while. But if she were to take the reins, say, a year or two or possibly 4 years down the road, she may have what it takes to be a great leader.
Jane Hamsher, the National Review cover story, The One, that famous ad that McCain campaign put together calling Senator Obama The One. Mm-hmm. Reaction?
I don't know. I'd like to respond to what Mona said, though, because I think that if a lot of people expressed concern that Barack Obama was not going to be ready to answer the 3 a.m. call, including yourself, and Sarah Palin is certainly more inexperienced than Barack Obama is. And in her interview with Charles Gibson last week, she didn't even know what the McCain doctrine was. So I don't know what about John McCain, what about Barack Obama makes people insecure and yet makes people feel like Sarah Palin would be qualified to step into?
No, I totally reject that notion that she is less qualified than Obama. I think the reverse is true.
Because Alaska is close to Russia and she has foreign policy experience?
She has executive experience, which none of the other candidates in the race has. Mm-hmm. That notion of it, you said the McCain doctrine, I think you meant the Bush doctrine. That was such a gotcha question. I mean, I follow politics very closely, and when I heard that question, my immediate reaction was, which one? Which Bush doctrine?
I know that the Bush doctrine is let's blow stuff up. And
no, excuse me. The Bush doctrine has about 4 different iterations, as outlined by Charles Krauthammer in a nice piece yesterday in the Washington Post.
Who, by the way, has serious concerns about her ability to assume.
Well, but not about her answer to this particular question. And that was a pure, snide gotcha moment by Charlie Gibson.
It was a reasonable question for someone who says that she is supposed to be able to assume the reins of power.
If I could just finish the point. If he had simply said, the Bush doctrine, about which says that we have the right to preempt in the event of a serious threat, says X. What do you think about that? That would have been a reasonable question. This, the Bush doctrine. Come on. No, I'm not going to tell you. Come on. This is going to be graded. That was his tone, and that was ridiculous.
She's not running for prom queen. She's supposed to be able to display to the American public that she has the foreign policy knowledge in order to be able to assume the executive office. That's the kind of question she should be able to answer, and she didn't. She faked it. She didn't even say, I'm not sure. What are you talking about?
Yes, she did. She said, in what sense? What do you mean? She asked him to clarify. And then she began to talk about George Bush's worldview, which is really what it boils down to. I mean, in the end, the Bush doctrine was about promoting democracy around the world. That was in its fourth iteration. And she did fine. She knew what he meant, but it was the gotcha thing which was offensive.
But as this public vetting process continues, and Jane Hamsher, let me share with you what Ann Kornbluth writes this morning in the Washington Post. Palin may not have visited Iraq as Governor Sarah Palin left her home state to make her first major solo appearance. She was in Nevada yesterday as the GOP VP nominee. Her aides scrambling to explain details of her travel outside North America, which, according to a new report, did not include Iraq, as the McCain-Palin campaign had initially claimed. Also, they indicated that she's also been to Ireland, but that was during a refueling stop.
Yeah, I think her foreign policy experience is embarrassingly thin. I think that she didn't go to Iraq as she said she did, any more than she opposed the bridge to nowhere like she said she did. You know, her experience, she keeps saying it over again, is that Alaska is close to Russia. And while it's true that we haven't been invaded by Russia in the past 2 years since she's been governor, I don't know how much credit she can take for that.
Mona Charen, how can the Republicans go after Senator Obama and his so-called thin resume without pointing the finger to Vice Presidential nominee Sarah Palin?
And the flip side is true as well. How can the Democrats complain about her thin resume and not draw attention to Obama's? And she's the second person on the ticket. He's the top of the ticket. You know, further, there's a huge distinction, I think, in conservatives and liberals in terms of how much weight we give to things like how many times have you been to London and Paris and Bangladesh and so on, versus what are your instincts about the world? What is your sense of America's role in the world? Obama can draw huge crowds in Berlin saying, this is our time. Very strange. Whose time? I thought he was running for president of this country. But his instincts are completely conventionally liberal, multilateral, that he believes that that the United States should be knit into a lot of international organizations that will only act collectively, which tends to be the liberal worldview, whereas Sarah Palin is much more associated with the conservative approach, which is a little skeptical of world organizations, very skeptical of the United Nations, believing that the United States has to do whatever is necessary to protect our own security. Those are her instincts. The rest will be fleshed out in time.
So how would you answer this question as posed in Newsweek magazine, the cover story this week, our first look, what women want? What do women want in this election?
Well, speaking for myself, I have to say that I think, and I think people do tend to generalize too much about what women want based on what they personally want. But I was very happy that Hillary Clinton managed to shatter the glass ceiling and make a very serious bid for the run of the presidency. I don't think we've seen anything like that before. It was inspirational. And I think Sarah Palin is taking advantage of the headway that she made. It's of concern to me that she's doing it in a way that does not advance women's rights. She was very much, she's not for sex education. She's not for being able to have freedom of choice. And, she doesn't even want
abortion is the word you're looking for.
She doesn't even want rape victims she wants rape victims to have to pay for their own rape kits.
That's false.
That's absolutely true.
No, it isn't.
She signed a budget where they took away.
She changed that.
No, she signed the budget. She absolutely did. No, there's not in any event. It's true. She wanted rape victims to pay for their own rape kits, which cost between $900 and $1,100 apiece. You've got a ticket that doesn't care about women's rights.
Excuse me.
You've got John McCain, who voted against the Violence Against Women Act, and suddenly we're looking at a ticket who's going to take advantage of the advances that Hillary Clinton and women in this country have made in order to put Sarah Palin in office and then set women's rights back.
Okay, well, first of all, I note that among your category of things that women want is the right to kill their unborn children, which you choose to call
women
choice.
In this country
that's
believe
one
that
thing.
abortion should be a right. Oh, yes, you did interrupt me, as a matter of fact.
Now you're doing it twice as often. Okay, first of all, on the
do
rape
the majority
kit,
of the women in this country
Times,
believe in the right to have freedom of choice?
We'll get a response. Go ahead, Mona Charen.
Yes? Yes, they do.
I'll answer your question. A plurality of American women do not approve of Roe v. Wade as it is currently constituted, meaning any reason throughout the 9 months of pregnancy women can have abortions. A plurality of American women oppose that.
The majority of Americans support what the Democrats feel on this particular subject. And they support what the Democrats feel on the economy.
You're wrong. You guys are always saying
because
most people. You guys always say people support Roe v. Wade, but when people are told what is in Roe v. Wade, they don't support it.
So they're stupid.
Okay. They're
No, they
uninformed.
support women's right
They
to
are
choose. You
uninformed.
cannot parse.
Now.
You cannot parse that away.
No.
They support a women's right to
okay,
choose.
if I can, and now if I
which
can,
is why the Republicans have to take this into character every time, because on the issue, the American people do not support what they feel on anything.